Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, chapter 3, text 18. आत्मात्मजाप्तो गृहवित्तदनेषु शक्तिर् दुष्प्रापणाय गुणसङ्गविवर्जिताय मुक्तात्मभिः सोहृदये परिभाविताय ज्ञानात्मने भगवते नमः ईश्वराय। आत्मात्मजाप्तो गृहवित्तधनेषु शक्तिः दुष्प्रापणाय गुणसङ्गविवर्जिताय मुक्तात्मभिः सोहृदये परिभाविताय ज्ञानात्मने भगवते नमः ईश्वराय. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. My Lord, those who are completely freed from material contamination always meditate upon you within the course of their hearts. You are extremely difficult to attain for those like me who are too attached to mental concoction, home, relatives, friends, money, servants and assistants. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uncontaminated by the modes of nature. You are the reservoir of all enlightenment, Supreme Controller. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Supreme Personality of Godhead comes into the material world. He is unaffected by the modes of material nature. This is confirmed in Isopanishad. Apapa vidham. He is not contaminated. This same fact is described here. Gunasanga vivarjitaya. Although the Supreme Personality Godhead appears as an incarnation within this material world, he is unaffected by the modes of material nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, Avajananti mangudha manusing tamasritam. Foolish men with insufficient knowledge deride the Personality Godhead because he appears just like a human being. Therefore, the Supreme Personality Godhead can be understood only by the Muktatma, the liberated soul. Muktatma bhi sohrudaye paribhavitaya. Only the liberated person can constantly think of Krishna. Such a person is the greatest of all yogis. Yoginangapi sarvesang madgatenam pratmana subhavan bhagati joman Swami bhuktatamamata. Of all the yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is highest of all. Offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead says here, especially, that it is very difficult, to understand that Supreme Personality of Godhead and to know that Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those people who are too much attached to mental concoction, home, relatives, friends, money, servants, and assistants, they are always thinking of these things. To their home, to their relatives, to their wives, to their children, to the followers, to their money. They always think of these things. They can never think of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They cannot keep Krishna in their mind. Very difficult. He says this thing. That who can understand Krishna? Who can approach Krishna? Who can achieve Krishna? That is a question. One who is a liberated person, who is free from material contamination, free from all sorts of material attachment, who is Muktatma, only he can understand what he says. It is stated here. Govinda says that. Because Krishna is above these three modes of material nature. Though he comes here to this material world, still he is not affected by these three modes of material nature. He is never contaminated by this bhautika, material qualities, is never contaminated. He is always in Suddha Sattva sthiti. He comes, he descends here with his dham, with his abode, his paraphernalia, everything. But still not affected by material modes, by material contamination. Example is given, Padam Patra Namra. Lotus leaf is there inside water, but it is not touched with water. Water cannot touch it. It remains untouched. Similarly, when Supreme Personality Godhead descends here with his dham, with his paraphernalia, everything, he remains unattached. He remains unattached. He is never affected by the material modes. The one who can be situated in such platform, that means who can be unattached to this material contaminations and the material modes. In other words, we may say, will go beyond these material modes. He can understand Krishna and see Krishna. Otherwise, not possible. Very difficult. Now, prakasa sarvasya yogamaya snabruta mudhayam nabhijanati. When mudha, rascal, he cannot understand me. A fool cannot understand me. He will derive the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an ordinary human being. The original form of Krishna is human form, 200 form. All beautiful form. Though Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has innumerable forms and innumerable incarnations. Innumerable forms, innumerable incarnations. You understand? Still, this human form, the most beautiful form, and 200 human form, fruit in hand, carved in 3 places, Tribhangalarita, Shyama Sundara Rupa, it is original form, the most attractive form. So when he comes in that form, the fools cannot understand. Avadananti mangmudha manusim tanvasitam. Mudha, the rascals, they deride me, an ordinary human being. They cannot understand it. It's difficult. One cannot. Naham prakasa sarvasya yogamaya sanatata mudha yunadina. I am covered up with my yogamaya shakti. Mudha rascal cannot understand me. I never manifest myself either. Before everybody. Though he is here, Alphabet, previously in previous verse, Govinda has already said, one can see him, how he is there in an atom also. Everywhere. Prahlad Maharaj saw in a stone pillar, whereas his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu, couldn't see this difference. The question of vision. Only one who is a bhakta, one is devotee, they are devotee of the Lord, he can see. Who has taken complete shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, is completely surrendered soul. He is free from this material contamination. He has gone beyond these 3 modes of material nature. Gunatita sthiti. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has instructed Arjuna to go beyond these 3 modes of material nature. You understand? Gunatita sthiti. Trigunatita. Then you can understand me. How can one attain that stage? Beyond the stage which is beyond these 3 modes of material nature. How can one attain? Yes? Hmm. Among Abhyabhicarina Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samatitanetan Brahmabhuyaya Kalpate. That Krishna says. Abhyabhicarina Bhakti, one will develop unalloyed devotion. Unalloyed devotion is one pointed. You understand? Abhyabhicarini Bhakti, Aikantika Bhakti, we say. Bhakti of Abhyabhicarini is unalloyed devotion, pure devotion. He can easily go beyond this material modes. He can situate himself in this transcendental position, which is not affected by the three modes of material nature. In that state, in that platform, the Supreme Personality Godhead is. Then he can understand Krishna, he can see Krishna, he can get that transcendental knowledge. You understand? Otherwise, a materially attached person, in other words, a conditioned soul, cannot understand. I cannot think of it. When one attains that stage, he always thinks of Krishna. As Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, most confidential instruction, in his most confidential instruction, Manmana Bhava, Mad Bhakta Mad Jadi Mang Namaskuru Mang Evasyasi, he says. Think of me only. Put me in your mind. Drive out all of the thoughts from your mind. Who can constrain and think of Krishna? Not anything else. He is a liberated person, Mukta. He is not affected by this three modes of material nature. He has gone beyond this three modes of material nature. He is in the transcendental platform. Only he can think of. Others cannot think of. One who is attached to his home, to his wife, to his children, to his kids and kin, relatives, country, like that, his wealth, cannot think of. He is only think of those things. He cannot put Krishna in his mind at all. The Govinda says the same thing. Those who are too much attached to this material enjoyment, home, country, relatives, kids, kin, sons, daughters, wives, they undergo many lots and lots of species of life here. They are evolving in this cycle of birth and death. And they suffer here. Life after life, they suffer here. They get unlimited miseries. You understand? Unlimited miseries. They try very hard to get some pleasure and happiness here. But they cannot get. They cannot get. They cannot get peace, they cannot get happiness and pleasure in this material world. This is dukkhalayam. The material world is filled with misery. There is no happiness at all. And the conditioned soul, ignorant soul, doesn't know how to get happiness, how to get pleasure. Happiness means real happiness and pleasure. There is no happiness and pleasure in this material world. The happiness and pleasure that a conditioned soul thinks here, that is material enjoyment, material pleasure, is not no pleasure and happiness at all. Rather, it is, what do you say? Jai sanskaja bhoga dukkha dona yevate adyanta banta konteya na te suramate bilpa. Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has said this thing. This material pleasure and happiness, no pleasure, no happiness. Rather, it is outcome of unlimited miseries. You understand? So, the conditioned soul cannot get any peace and happiness here. He doesn't know how he can get real happiness and peace because he is an ignorant, is devoid of true knowledge, transcendent knowledge. He is covered up with jnana, nonsense, so he cannot get peace and happiness here. Though he tries hard, you understand? In Srimad Bhagavatam, especially in 11th canto, you'll find it is stated, Karmanyara bhumananam dukkha tei sudhaya cha pasyet pak vipadyasam mithuni charinam nunam. 11th canto, 3rd chapter, 18th verse says this thing. Prabhupada Rishi says this thing. That here in this material world, the conditioned soul tries hard to get some pleasure and happiness, and he therefore engaged in various activities. Still, he cannot get any happiness and pleasure. Rather, he gets misery. Any pleasure, what happiness gets is very temporary, fleeting pleasure, temporary pleasure, for some time, and outcome is unlimited miseries. Nityartidena vityena dullavena atmamrityuna grahapatyaptapasubhi kapriti sadhite ishtari. Prabhupada Rishi says this thing. This material world is full of miseries. This place, a miserable place. Always there is miseries. No happiness, no pleasure is here. And here conditioned soul tries very hard to get some pleasure, some happiness, but he couldn't get, cannot get. Rather he gets unlimited misery. He is here only attached to his material wealth, home, sons, daughters, kith and kin, his own followers, countrymen, country, like this. Attached to it, too much attached. All these things, and always thinking of them. And he wants to get pleasure and happiness being attached to these things. How can he get? Krishna is the only source of pleasure and happiness. Sachidanandamaya. Sat-chit anandamaya. Full of eternity, full of knowledge, and full of pleasure. He is the only source of pleasure and source of real pleasure and happiness, which is transcendental pleasure. Material pleasure is no pleasure at all. Because you are not body, you are the soul. It is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna. So by nature, you are transcendental and you are also Sachidananda, though minute Sachidananda. So the soul wants here Ananda, pleasure, therefore, but it cannot get, being covered up with ignorance, being attached to Maya. You understand? Which is ignorance, andhaka, which is darkness. Transcendent knowledge is of enlightenment. So he is covered up with ignorance. How can he understand Krishna? How can he attach himself to Krishna, who is transcendental, who is full of all pleasure? How can he get pleasure? That's the question. One after another, this conditioned soul tries to get something which will give him some pleasure. Or just to, he has manifold necessities, deficits. He wants so many things here. And he tries to get something just to fulfill his deficit. If he gets something to fulfill some of his deficiencies of some kind, then many other deficiencies come up. In this way, a conditioned soul is always in a distressful condition, miserable condition. Miserable condition. All these material things, material objects cannot give you any pleasure, any happiness. You understand? Therefore, he is always put up here, always bound up here by the material modes of nature. Unless he goes beyond this material mode, he cannot understand Krishna, he cannot get true peace and happiness. That Govinda says here. That means that one who can completely surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna and develop this unalloyed devotion to him, he can go beyond these three modes of material nature and get true happiness and pleasure. And he can understand. His bhakta, his devotee, as it says, is real yogi. He can constantly think of Krishna, meditate on Krishna in his mind. Otherwise, the thought of Krishna cannot come to his mind. All these things will come up. His wife, his children, the material enjoyment, material home, wealth, country, nation, all thoughts will come up. Krishna will never come. You understand? So, Govinda says, such people, such yogis, those who constantly think of Krishna, yoginangapi sarvesan, madgatinam pratmana suddhavan, bhadutejo mang Swami, jittatamamadaha, of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is highest of all. Is all yogis. Highest of all yogis is bhakti yogi. Bhakti yogi, the dear devotee of the Lord. Krishna tries him. Krishna, though Krishna is there in this material world, but he is covered up with yoga maya. He is never manifested everywhere and before everybody. Only who is the dear devotee, true devotee, pure devotee of Krishna, he can see him. Though Krishna tries to hide him, still Bhakta can see him. Bhakta can see him. A devotee can see him. Krishna cannot hide him before a devotee. Because a devotee, pure devotee, is completely free from material contamination. And he has developed this Premanjana Churita Bhakti Lojana, Tivilojana. Developed to love, pure love for Krishna. And he has bound up Krishna in his heart with the rope of love. Bhakta ma bandhyache, premi bandhyache uday vitare. Jahan jahan netra pada tahan dekhi. In Siddhu Swami. That devotee, the dear devotee, has bound me up with the rope of love in his heart. Wherever he looks, he always sees me. And he always meditates on me. He always thinks of me in his mind. I am always in his mind. Such a person can understand Krishna, see Krishna. Who is completely free from this material guna dosha. Gajendra said. So we should take this lesson from Gajendra's prayer. And human life is meant for this. That is the perfection of human life. To understand Krishna, to see Krishna, to have Krishna. Then you can get real happiness and pleasure. Is eternal pleasure and eternal happiness. Not fleeting, temporary. Krishna is eternal.
जय